Hello and welcome to Basketball Talk Pro. My name is Ron Ekker. I would like to remind you that I spoke to you a couple segments ago about giving you a list of all of the talks and segments that we've had, and it's now 74, I believe, and that are in the archives. And I probably will do that tomorrow. I want to do it on a day I'm not sending out an email. It'll be attached to your email. And so you'll be able to see every segment that we've given plus the date. So if you see something there you want to go back to or you didn't hear, you're able to do that. Just come to Basketball Talk Pro, go to the archives, and they're listed by month. And you go to the month and then you can find the particular one you want. Now today I want to talk about practice planning. We've talked about practice management, kind of worked around practice planning. But I think planning a practice is very important. I never want to take the floor in a practice without having it planned out. And I think it's important that you write your plan. I think it is more permanent. I think it's more of a commitment. And it keeps you in line. It keeps you organized. It keeps you working in the right direction, not doing things you don't need to do, and doing the things that you need to do. It's just good. I think it's just good personal discipline to write your plan out. Now I'm going to show you a plan. Actually, in volume 3 of the book I wrote, basketball's third element, improvisation. I have 12 practices. I show an example of 12 practices. They're the practices that I offer to coaches as a way of developing the monk system to get it started, to get going. But one of those, I'm going to use 2 of those practices and show you the form and that sort of thing. So let's go to that right now and take a look at a actual practice plan that we've used. This is the form that I use for every practice. It never varies, and pretty simple. You don't need to follow this form, of course, but I think you should have a form. It prompts you to look at times and look at things that you need. I always put the date on it. I always put the number of the practice so that I can keep track of things, come back to things if I need to. Put the time down. We always put the time of each drill, when we want to go to it, what the practice item is, and the equipment that's necessary. This is so that the manager or trainer or whoever's working with you can know in advance how many balls they're going to need or what they need, a clock, all the things that you might want. It's a good habit. It's good discipline for you, too, to really look into things and make sure everything is organized correctly. The first 3-4 items here always remain the same, and I'll explain that in a little bit. The first item is, we start right on time, by the way. And just so that you understand, you don't have to do it this way, but I'm just telling you what we do. At 3 o'clock, this is a typo on AM. We don't practice at 3 a.m. It's 3 p.m. in this case. At 3 o'clock or 11 o'clock, whenever we start practice, I walk out to the middle of the floor. And I just simply say, bring it in. No whistle. I don't use a whistle when I coach. players get so used to that. They know this practice so well that they'll see me walk to the middle of the floor and they automatically pick up their ball. And I make them put the ball in the rack. And I don't want them just throwing the ball over there. I want them going over and putting it in the rack. We make the ball rack available to them. And they get used to that. No big thing. I like to talk briefly to the team before we start. I think it's just a relationship thing. Bring them together. Talk to them a little bit. Sometimes I tell them a story. Sometimes I tell them a joke. I don't really tell jokes, but I tell them something that is funny to them. And sometimes I'm serious. Sometimes I have a lot to tell them. Sometimes, I have to make sure that they understand on the next trip or whatever. But get together. And then we put our hands out and we go about our business. These drills, these 3 drills, shooting number 1. Now we have 2 shooting drills that we start with. We keep track of their makes and we record them. We alternate days. The next day would be shooting number 2, then back to number 1, number 2, so on. Stretching is done once we have everything learned in 10 minutes. I'm allowing 15 minutes here because it's the first day and I know that there's going to be instruction that's necessary. It takes time. We don't talk during stretching. I like it. I like it because it's quiet. I don't talk. Assistants don't talk. Nobody talks except the guy running the drill. And after a while, he doesn't even talk. He doesn't need to. And then we do a slide drill, a defensive slide drill. We alternate 1 and 2 on this too. And I think this drill, because we do it every day, we get pretty good. It's a footwork drill. And they get pretty good with their footwork. And I think it affects how they play in a game defensively. I like it. I wouldn't ever run a practice without doing this. So the first part of the practice, and this is another thing I like, they're comfortable with it. They know what's coming up. They know what they have to do. There's very little talking necessary, very little instruction. They get into kind of a groove. They're comfortable with what we're doing. Players will maybe hate something for a while, but if you do it over and over again, what I have found is they adjust, and they just accept it, and they make better use of it. Then this is the first practice. All of these things are the whole. I believe in the whole part method. First we teach the whole, then we teach the parts. Then the parts have some meaning when they can see how it fits into the whole. And everything we do relates to the whole. So they can grab that and understand why they're doing it. They have a sense of that. We always start practice with our defensive work first. I just think that they're at their most attentive. They're not as tired, and defense can be grinding. They get that over with, and when it comes to offense, they enjoy that more. So I'm not going to go through the drills. We do a shell drill. We allow 20 minutes because we got to do a lot of teaching. 5-man rebounding drill, which you've seen. 10 minutes. 5-man fast break. 10 minutes. Use 2 balls. Each team, white and black, have a ball, and they just come right in with 1 possession, and then the next team comes in. We do 1 possession and change. Keeps some momentum going for both groups, and I think you get more even and better work. Monk offense requires a lot of teaching at first. We allow 20 minutes for it. I sometimes go over on that, and I'll explain that to you too. Then, because we've shown them the monk offense, and we do the screen away drill for 15 minutes, and then that's the part of the whole. Condition for 6 minutes. What we do is we do suicides, 2 groups. You got to do it, run it in 30 seconds. We do each number or time for two practices, 2 days of practice. And then we move up one notch to 7. And we do that for 2 days and we repeat each notch until we get to 11. 11 is a mile. That's a lot of running after a full practice. And then we start back down 10, 9, and at 8 we quit. And that's the end of conditioning for the whole season. And they're in shape by that time. Now I'm just going to move up here a little bit and show you practice number 6. Same setup. Now we're on shooting 2, slide drill 2. But these are different drills, you see, and these are not the first time they run them. So we only need 10 minutes. I think if you go beyond 15 minutes in any drill or any event in practice, you're stretching the concentration level just about as far as you want to go. Better to move on, do it more often, and keep them concentrating and aware of things during the drill. And as you can see, we're down here now. We're into parts right here. We end with 4-on-4, half court and full court, which is a nice workout. 15 minutes. We're up to 8 on conditioning. You notice we have the clock as well as the other equipment. So everything is right there. And we get a nice practice. I think if you work through things like this, you have good practices. You get a lot done. And you notice I don't have a drink break. I never do that. What I tell the players is this: if you're not in a drill, you're welcome to go have drinks. Take care of yourself. I don't need to have a break, and so go get your drink. They go over. Sometimes I have to correct them because they want to get over there, and then pretty soon their drill is coming up and they're not ready to go in. But I don't have to do that many times. They understand after a while. He's going to want me on the floor when my drill comes up, so I got to be there. And it after a while it just gets to be like old times. We're just working together. We're in there thing together. We're we understand each other. We understand why we're running this drill. I understand if they're tired. I understand when they break concentration. Yeah. Oh, so it gets very smooth, and I like it that way. It makes for better practice. One thing I do want to tell you, I stretch some of these drills out a little longer and cut back on the other ones. And there's days that I have to rearrange. I only rearrange in one way. Say we go over. This would be an easy drill for me to go over on. But it looks like the first drill time we're running it, so I allowed 15 minutes. It's a drill that I know I have a lot of time on. If I go over and I can't make it up by shortening some others, I will decide in my mind on priority which ones, and I'll just drop them and use them the next day. And sometimes I start on time, I end on time. I want them to know, hey, we're not going to stand out here and just keep working and working. 5 o'clock, they're going down shower. Sometimes a little later, sometimes a little earlier. But they know that approximately within 5 or 10 minutes of the ending time, they're going to be out of there. And so they don't have to pace themselves. So that's it. I just wanted you to see a form, and we'll talk more about some of these items as we go on here. Well, you already saw a plan, an actual plan that we used, and we didn't go into the drills, of course. I think through time we'll get to all those drills, and we've done a number of them already, a couple in there that I'm sure you remember. Um, but the trick is, how do you select those items when you're making your plan? I think you need to focus on what you feel is important on that particular day. Don't worry about down the road or what's past. But what do you want to get done that particular day? I tell the story about the college professor walks in with a bowl and a bunch of rocks and asks if anybody can get all the rocks in the bowl. Well, they fail. Eventually one guy gets up, goes up and picks the biggest rock up and puts that in first, then the second biggest rock in that end, then the third biggest rock, until he got all the big rocks in, and then he fits the small rocks in between the spaces and gets them all in the bowl. Well, this is a lot like planning a practice. The way I look at it, I want the biggest rock in there first. I want to know that if I have to work on the monk offense, that's going to get in there. That comes number one. Number two, and then what's left, things I want to do, I can fit those in and find a time for them. And if I can't, I'm really not taking anything away from the practice, because I got the most important things in. So that's one way to look at it. Make sure, though, that you spend some time making sure you're getting what you need in for that day, that it's in there, and it'll take care of itself after that. The next practice you can get some things in that you think are important that you missed. I'll just give you three little maybe tips, you'd call them, to planning that practice. The first thing is, and it ties in with what I just said, do only what is necessary. Don't be intrigued and obsessed with some cutesy thing that you've seen and you really are dying to try it. You have to have the personal discipline to stay with the things that are unnecessary. You will avoid so many problems, and you will not overload your players with unnecessary items. And allow time. Allow yourself time for each thing that you do. And use the time. Don't hurry through things. Do what you have to do. I told you that, I go over on drills. And sometimes I have to knock off a drill because I went over too far. But if I'm in the middle of putting in a drill or an offense or anything, and it requires more time than I allowed for it, I give it more time. I use the time that we have. That's number two. And number three, prepare for your practices. What I do, and I think is good advice, it's kind of a form of mental practice for me. I go through and mentally practice every drill, every item on there. I even mentally practice phrases that I want to make sure that I tell the players that otherwise I might forget them in the heat of things. But very seldom when I mentally practice something I want to say, do I forget it in the heat of practice. When I do not memorize anything, ever, when I'm in a practice. I want to be free to maneuver and to tell things as they happen. Some things I may think is good, but when in practice something happens, it's just a perfect time to say something else. But by mental practicing, I get in what I want to get in and say to the team. Well, I'll leave it with this. When I prepare correctly for a practice, we have good practices. When we have a bad practice, which every coach does, and you, not one or two, you may have many number of them, but when I do, I know one thing: I didn't prepare correctly. And I know when I don't prepare correctly. Sometimes you're setting aside an hour to get ready for your practice. If an emergency comes up or something else comes up, and you get robbed of that time, maybe a half hour or 15 minutes, and you have to hurry through that practice. Not always, but more times than I'd like, we end up having a bad practice. We walk off the floor and everybody's complaining about the players. The players are complaining about the coaches. But I know in my heart that that was my bad. I wasn't ready for a good practice, and it showed on the floor. So take the time to prepare. Your practices will be much better. Thank you.